Hi, welcome back to the Ask Big Al. I've got some issues here that I wanted to talk to you about. Episode maybe 3 or 4, we showed you some Toyota Priuses, some C-Max, Ford Prius hybrids, and I believe it was a Hyundai Kia hybrid. Okay, first I'm going to take on because I told you I would get back to you with kind of some of the readings that I found in some of these converters. On the hybrid Toyota Prius, the front, which has a number on that front cat, is a GP1. That came up pretty good, up in the 500 plus numbers. That converter comes with another converter attached to it, directly behind it, with the O2 sensor directly in the middle of those two, which would be a TB1, which came up to in the 150 plus. Okay, I'm giving the 150 being the low number, the plus you guessed. Okay, that makes that converter worth about $500 to $600, $660, somewhere in that range there, which is a good yield for that converter. Then there is another converter on the vehicle, mind you, forward of that. My next one was the 2016 Prius on there. There was that small one, the skinny long with the new design. And I only had, on this car, I only had the rear converter on it. I did not have the front, and that one didn't come up so good. That was just over $100. That came with a TL3 attached to it, and on that one you can almost tell where the O2 sensor is located forward of the converter about 6-7 inches. That indicates it's not reading what's going through that converter. So I would call that a cleanup converter or a downstream converter, where it's basically cleaning what is forward of that couldn't clean. So any hydrocarbons, carbon dioxide got left, NOx, that got left forward of that, in front of that O2 sensor, is now being cleaned up in that particular converter. On the 2013 Ford C-Max, again, that wasn't super bad. There wasn't a whole lot of weight there in the converter itself, a lot of pipe. That came around the 240, 250 range, in that range there, which I thought was pretty good for the size of that converter. And that was actually a manifold converter, so that was pretty good. And then our last one I did on that particular day that I thought was going to come in as, quote, the winner of the precious metals, but it did not. That came in at a yield of like $130. It only weighed 98, not even a pound, so it was shy of a pound. It didn't. The ppms were not that great in that, and I was expecting more from that one, and it wasn't there. When I went to take a look at the pictures because when we log this stuff, we put them in our catalog and we put them in our CID program for future use on identifying converters. I went back and looked at the pictures, and I wanted to see where the O2 sensor was located in this. It did not have one. So at that point I realized I was working with a cleanup converter as well. Okay? And that took care of that. And I want to bring your attention to what I have up here on the counter here. These are converters. These are what we call meltdown converters. This one here is pretty dark in color. This one is also dark in color, very tannish and light in color. And over here is what some might say was stone or a piece of rock, or it just feels, got the texture of a rock. And I found this in the bottom of a box from one of our converter companies that supply us. And I tested this, and I was, to my amazement, it wasn't a rock, it was actually melted converter, and it came in with a yield of $9.25. So, yeah, Cole, this is an interesting thing, because if someone was to look at that on the ground, they'd say, hey, it looks just like a stone or a rock, and it's not. It really isn't. Hey, while you're here and you're doing a zoom in, can you zoom in on these 3 little puppies? That's great. That's good. Thank you, Cole. I really appreciate this. It gives them a nice idea of what they look like melted down. What I really was coming in here and wanted to show you, this is what we call a forward melt. It melted in front of the converter. Okay? All of the precious metals is entrapped into that melt. And how you can tell, you can look at the back of the converter, nothing escaped. There's no big holes for it to fly out of. The same thing with this one. If you look in the back side, it's clean. Nothing, there's no air can go through this. So obviously these particular cars did not run well because the exhaust could not flow through the car. So there was no way of it escaping. Now you can see this design, what we call a rear melt, where the back of the converter, this side of it, melts together and the front side is clean. Very rare do you see that, but it can happen. Usually you see it with a car that has an air pipe in the rear of the converter, pushing in air to dilute the exhaust, okay? That will happen. So the concept that when some of the people look at this, they say, well, that's only worth half the value, but in essence, the value is still intact in there. It hasn't broken into pieces like this and fallen out of the converter. That's why, the other reason why I wanted to bring this forward. If you can, Cole, I don't know if you can zoom in that tight, but if you can, you'll see on the back side, you'll see those little lines of veins. That's the actual converter that melted together. It really was interesting. I honestly thought I was picking up some rocks that was in it. And then when I saw those tiny lines, I realized I wanted to test it. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is what we call silicon carbide, which is this converter here. It is very heavy in weight. This one happens to be out of a Chevy Cruze. This is really becoming, this was out of a diesel. This is becoming more and more known now in the diesel industry. The manufacturers, whether it be Ford, Chrysler, all of the big guys, they're using this design as their rear converter. It's pretty heavy, but the reason why I brought it in was because I see a lot of guys handle this, and a lot of yards handle those particular converters, and they do not handle them properly. They don't wear a mask. And why I say they don't wear a mask, silicon carbide is very dangerous to inhale or breathe, and you should be, if you're dealing with one of these and it breaks up in pieces in the converter, and a lot of you car buyers, a lot of you big yards, you all know this because you see this on a daily basis. You'll see these converters break up in pieces and the dust starts floating around. Well, it's one thing to have this dust floats around, it's still dangerous for you. You shouldn't be inhaling it, but when you see this black dust floating around, better not be inhaling it. Better not have it on your clothing when you go home to your kids or your wife, if you have those two. If it's just you living alone, you still should clean your clothes. But in all honesty, this is, I can't emphasize enough, silicon carbide. Look it up, Google it, you'll find out the health effects from that. And when you're tossing these converters around, you guys in the trucks, you guys who toss them into the huge Gaylord boxes that we get delivered to us, everyone here, no matter if you visit us or anything, you have to wear one of these in our facility with some safety glasses and a helmet. Everyone here they wear a fill system, clean air system. They don't want to breathe in any dust from anything. They prefer to work that way. It works really well for us. I have my converter from last week that I kind of put the challenge out there for you all to kind of identify it. We did get some response. No, it doesn't fit a submarine. It doesn't. It's not used in the water, but it is used on a fun vehicle. I got to admit that. So continue on. I still have the UCC mug, which I'm willing to send it to someone. We had some great questions that came in, and I thank you for those questions. Those questions were awesome. Next week, we kind of want to address the questions. We'll have a question and answer. This is a little pretty interesting. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the train of thought that some of you have and your questioning. And the questions you've actually asked were very good. Very good. I was very impressed. So for this week, we're still focusing on our converter of the week. And once I give that mug away, we'll have something else to actually focus in a little bit on to get your attention, because we want to keep your attention. We want to have you keep asking questions, because through your questions, we all get educated. Yourself, myself, our industry, the converter industry, and it ends up being a win-win for everyone. Thank you for your time.